All right, so as I was preparing, I started thinking over the past 13 years that I've spent looking at sustainable urban water, and a few questions came out like, why have I gotten so gray, and why am I always having pictures of climbing inside of culverts and using power tools inside of city environments? And the question about the gray hair probably has a lot to do with these two over here, which came along during that process. But the other one has to do with this idea of cities. And the future of cities is very important to me, a very interesting topic to me of what is the city of the future going to look like and how is it going to function? That question becomes really important in the field of sustainability. Partially, that's because world population is increasing. This is no surprise to us. But if we look at the demographics, we also see that those increases are predominantly happening inside of urban environments. So we're getting to be a more urbanized world. If you look at North America, the figures are really surprising as to how urbanized North America is. And so we have some issues as engineers over here. We have very poor infrastructure grades, obviously, in the U.S. It's time for a huge infrastructure upgrade. And we also have this issue of climate change and these other compounding factors that interact with infrastructure to create big problems for urban environments. Now, we're not doing a great job in terms of stormwater management and urban water that I work in. This is a site right off of Kingston Pike, and this is a huge stormwater outfall where we have a large erosion. We started calling this Knoxville's Grand Canyon, and it's beautiful for maybe the right person. And why this happens is because when we take natural settings and we move to urban settings, we dramatically change where rainfall goes. We change this water balance. We've got less infiltration, less evapotranspiration, and a lot more runoff. And so streams try to adjust and deal with that excess runoff, and sometimes it doesn't look very good for us because it means a lot of erosion. So the National Academy of Engineering put out a call, or one of their grand challenges, to restore and improve urban infrastructure. And the idea is if we're going to recreate our infrastructure because it's time in our country, what is that going to look like? And can we do it in a new way? So can we take things like stormwater and can we convey it and can we clean it? But can we also create livable habitat when we do that? And this brings about this idea of green infrastructure that I work in. And if we look at a picture of Chattanooga, we can see trees, we can see open space, we can see parks, and all those interconnected green spaces make up what we call green infrastructure, which is these green pieces of cities that mean so much for ecology and for the function of the city. Now, for me, I work with stormwater practices, and so I do things with green roofs and bioretention and permeable pavement. And the idea for these is to create habitats to create ecological growth, to create green space for people, and also to bring back that more natural hydrology. All right, now I'm going to project. I projected what I'm going to look like in 20 years as my career continues. A little bit more gray, but I think I'm looking pretty good there. And I'm going to pose 3 challenges that we're going to see in my field over that time. The first is for us to understand how these systems actually work. And there's a lot of work that goes into understanding societal benefits and ecological benefits. We know what goes into these practices and we know what comes out, but we don't know a whole lot about what happens inside, about the biology, about the chemistry of these green infrastructure systems. And so we want to open up the black box. So some of the research that we do at UT is working with the Forest Service. We're really interested in trees. They have a huge benefit in urban areas. So we want to know how happy are trees inside of green infrastructure practices. We want to know how trees are responding to water. This is a sap flow sensor on the side where we can measure how the sap flows inside of trees. We want to know how they're responding to this urban environment and to stormwater in these management techniques. We have field scale applications where we go and we put in, this is a regenerative stormwater conveyance. It's just a more sustainable way to convey water from watersheds into streams. And we can model that system and we can monitor it. And we're trying to figure out how do we design these things to function best. The second question that we have is, how do we scale those effects to the watershed? It's one thing to study an individual practice, but when we put, let's say, 1,000 of these inside of Second Creek, how is that actually going to work? And how is that actually going to function when we put them in mass? That's a big question because it's really hard to actually do that. It costs a ton of money. So part of our work deals with modeling, where we try to figure out if we can model better at the site scale, we can try to take that and extrapolate it out to the watershed scale. So we take things like bioretention areas or green rain gardens, and we try to model the hydrology there and try to do a really good job of that. We also take geospatial data, so we have elevation models, and we have pipe data, and we have building data, and all these things are becoming available in cities that we didn't have before. And we can couple those things together, and we can start getting a better idea if we're going to put these green practices in, where are we going to put them to get the most hydrologic and ecological benefit. The last thing is understanding how stormwater works in this context of smart cities. We just got some grant funding to start looking at this with University of Michigan and University of Virginia. And the idea is to make this more of a smart system where we have sensors around our watersheds and we have the ability to control, to open and close valves. But we don't just have technical barriers, we also have social barriers. And so in our projects, we also build in components like, how does the public perceive these? How would a person feel like if we took over control of a pond and started managing that ourselves using these activated controls? And so we're really trying to work at that from multiple levels. Now, we always like to build in community engagement also. And so we do a lot of work with schools. We've got 4 local high schools that we're working with where we use sensors and we let the students actually collect data, little rain gardens that they have on campus. We take students around and teach them how to collect water samples and sample them. And so I guess my parting note is it doesn't really matter what happens as I get more gray. I'm excited to finish up my career one day, and I have this is my group of grad students right here, a great baton to pass on to students that are very capable of addressing these challenges if I don't quite get there in my career. So thank you.